Welcome into 11 Personnel presented by Monticello Bank. I'm Nick Roush. He's Adam Luckett, and this is our signing day special. The earliest signing day in the history of signing days is still not come to a close yet. We're going to wrap it up here at KS Bar and Grill, even though we're still waiting on one. So maybe there's a little anxiety out there. I wouldn't blame you. I'm hoping we get some breaking news during the show, but a lot's happened today, Luckett. I don't want to waste too much time because Mark Stoops, he's getting ready to speak again at 6. So we appreciate y'all joining us today on this show as we break down the Cats class and everything that's going on. And we also appreciate our good presenting sponsors at Monticello Bank, where people matter. They've been putting the people first for 128 years. They got convenient locations all across the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And they're also conveniently located online at nbcbank.com. Go visit them there, and they'll see what you can do to get the best offers, the best rates for you and all of your personal financial needs. Monticello Bank, give them a shout. Tell them 11 Personnel sent you. We appreciate their support all year long. Monticello Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Luckett. Oh, wow. I shook my computer up quite a bit. How we doing? How we feeling? I'm glad we got that coffee about an hour ago. I think that was 5 or 6 for me. I needed it because that juice you're hearing right now, that's PEDs. That's the PEDs talking. That's not my actual energy right now.
That's the Dunk King in you. That's the Dunk King talking right now. To me, Nick, we need coffee today. That's what coffee is made for. You know it's a busy day when you're stopping into Dunkin' about 3:30 p.m. That's for like the second shifter coffee break, start a shift, start the second shift to where maybe you're working to midnight. Not necessarily. We should be winding down the day, not getting ramped up. But this is the time of year. And so interesting day, eventful day.
Yeah.
We're still waiting on one player. So is Kentucky. So that see how that plays out. But definitely an eventful day. And then really this was kind of this closed the books to me because I don't think we'll hear from Mark Stoops until spring practice starts. So the next time we'll hear from him, they will have, I would say, 90% of their football team locked in for spring practice. So we'll know a lot more next time we talk to him. But this really closed the books to me on the season. And it's the unofficial start to the 2025 campaign.
And it is a little unusual, too, because by then we'll have 90% of the roster locked in. But right now it feels like you've got maybe 20, 25. The good thing is the Stoops did share a little insight on some players who they expect to be returning, which we can get to later. But I wanted to start with the one that we're missing right now. DJ Miller from the St. Louis Metro, a big 6'3" wide receiver. I'm high on DJ Miller. Some of it's just the size and his ability to catch 50-50 balls. The other part is he comes from a program that they once had Luther Burden and Jameson Williams on the same football team. They produced some talented wide receivers. He's had about 2,000 yards and 31 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons, been highly productive. The other part of it is he turned down Ole Miss and Tennessee to come to Kentucky. Kentucky's remained confident about it. Mark Stoops and Vince Merrill sounded confident about it. People behind the scenes have been confident about it. But wide receivers coach left yesterday to go to Nebraska. He was the guy who recruited DJ Miller. And there's some talk, some whispers over in Oxford that Ole Miss is looking to add another receiver. So Kentucky's confident they'll be able to get this fax in within the next few hours, the next 24 hours. We're hoping it happens the next few, because I think he can be an impact player. But it would be a tough look if they lost this guy right on the heels of losing their wide receivers coach yesterday to Nebraska.
Yeah, I think, Nick, just look at the roster. Just pull it up. If you could pull it up, and if you just on our nice little distribution sheet, in which I'll have, probably won't get to it tonight, but on KSR Plus tomorrow, we'll have kind of how the scholarship capital is being spent after this period. If the portal will just take a break for me for about an hour so I can write that post, just kind of see how it is. But you kind of look at the roster, and assuming Dane Key doesn't come back, they don't have a big-bodied X receiver.
No.
Guess what they're probably going to target in the portal? A big-bodied X receiver.
Right.
But Jerry Miller, I think, fits that. And to me, I've been asked, Is he going to play at all this year? Will he play some? To me, I think he would be kind of in a rotation snap situation. I think if everything went right, and would maybe play out similar to how Harley Gilmore was kind of worked into the lineup, place him as a freshman, probably ask them to be a starter as a sophomore. And so this is a guy I think highly productive, big numbers. He fits a role that Kentucky doesn't have on their offense. It's kind of interesting with their transfer, or not transfer, with their receiver class. They've kind of got an interesting receiver class where they've got like these two might slot receivers who can absolutely go with Cam Miller and Montavian Quisenberry.
Mm-hmm.
Then they've got kind of this speedster Z / return specialist, I think, in Quentin Simmons. And then Miller is kind of, and then Preston Bowman is kind of a mix between, I would say, a Z and a slot, more of kind of like an inside ball winner guy who you can just maybe throw the football up to and creates 50-50 situations, maybe a smaller version of what the Jerry Miller is, but they don't have the 6'3", 6'4", kind of big guy on the outside, and he can be that. I think he has wide receiver one potential. Again, Tennessee and Ole Miss wanted him. I think a lot of people think highly of how Tennessee and Ole Miss evaluate receivers, and so he's a big target and would be a big get for Kentucky. So it's definitely one I think they need to get in here. And if you're making a list of guys who could play next year, he's in the top 5.
Correct. Yeah, we were actually was making that list last night. I got a post up on Kentucky Sports Radio right now. He was in my initial cut of impact players, and especially just that. I mean, how many times did you see a quarterback throw a decent ball up this year and receiver has a chance to make a play? It doesn't happen. Like Dame won his fair share of those. Macklin did at the end of the year, but it was definitely lacking from this offense. And DJ Miller can provide that. So we'll be standing by. Hopefully we get some good news during this podcast about it. We'll probably get like 17 more portal guys to enter the 2023 class. There's hardly any of them left. Hardly Gilmore. He's still there, but I guess he was 24. So I digress. But
I've got to pull it up if you want to go through it because that's something I do want to talk about.
Yeah, we might as well do it right now before we get into all of the impact players in this signing class.
And of course, Tommy Ziesmer, Nick. I don't know if you just mentioned that.
I had not, but
up the workflow. He's in the portal.
Tommy Ziesmer. There was Javon Brown, who was just a few minutes before him. Tanner LeMaster. Ooh, can I name them all? That might be tough. You count Walker Heimbach?
Let's just do scholarship players here.
Okay. So that I think covers this year, but last year you also had Shamar Porter. Was Kobe Albert in that one or no?
No, he was 22.
Okay. So who else am I missing from 23? Because I think it's 7 players from that 19-player class are already gone.
You skipped over 2 this year. That would be Avery Stewart and Kamari Anderson.
Correct. Kamari Anderson was a high school All-American, 4-star guy. So was Avery Stewart. He was a 4-star guy.
And you got Shamar Porter. You missed, let's see here, Ardell Banks.
Oh, yeah. Jacob Dixon. Did he even make it? He was there for like a week. Had a cup of coffee. Had a Dunkin'.
We'll count Jacob Dixon. And then you had, of course, Jeremiah Anglin, who left in the spring last year after the big spring game. And he's at Pittsburgh right now. So they signed 19 guys in that class. And let's see here. 1, 2, 3, great radio. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
So there's almost more departures than there are returners from a class that you signed 2 years ago. That's not great. We saw this. Was it the 2017 group that had JJ Weaver, where there was like 5 guys? Yes. Yeah, the 19 class. They had like 5 guys that played out of 20 something. Like, you can see why the results are the results if things like that are happening. So the 23 class, and here's the other part too. Like it's so early, you don't know how much of it was misevals. You don't know how much of it was bad development or lack of portal. Because like Avery Stewart's a guy that you needed to be able to hit on, like 4-star lengthy DB, like that. That guy that guy should have been a player here. You know, some of the other ones I understand, like Tanner Master, he got recruited over almost instantly. Tommy Ziesmer, kind of similar, but he was an in-state guy, kind of a tweener at the time. That was tough, but like you need more hits than misses, and that's kind of the story of this program as of late. And so you're really banking on this 24 class and this 25 class, where I think we can see the scenario like it when you go through. So, yeah, this guy should be an SEC starter. Like, this guy should be an SEC rotational player. Like, this should be a good player if everything pans out. Not only do they match their eval, but they're developed and they improve once they get on campus. I think that's especially the case for the 24 class in the trenches and at linebacker, because they invested a lot in that group. Like, they need the B-Robs, the Smiths, the Sacrum Soulses. Like, they need those guys to pan out, just like in this class, the slot receiver, right? Like, you know, they've been searching for somebody to fill Wandale's shoes. And not everybody can be Wandale Robinson, but you haven't had a consistent slot receiver since 2021. Tavion Robinson bust in the transfer portal. I don't even know who their slot receiver was this year, right? Like, you need to have consistent slot receiver play.
Didn't have one. That's the answer.
Yeah. But the sad part is, like, I didn't have Quisenberry in my impact players post. We'll talk about Cam Miller in a moment, but if there was a guy to compare to Wandale Robinson, it's a guy who put up insane numbers at the best program in the state of Kentucky. But it wasn't just that Quisenberry put up insane numbers. It's that he did the stuff that Wandale Robinson did. So I messaged Justin Haddix, like, hey, do you just have his stats handy for this thing I'm writing tomorrow? And he was like, here you go. And the first stat, 1,400 passing yards, 15 passing touchdowns, 2,500 receiving yards, 38 touchdowns, 4,500 rushing yards, 61 touchdowns. And when you watch his tape, like, this isn't just like they're like basically doing jet sweeps and he's running around people. Like, this guy's running in between the tackles like Wandale did. Like, that's why they had to put Wandale. That's why they tried him at tailgate back at Nebraska, because the dude could run between the tackles. I know we've heard Vince talk about guys who are Mike Edwards or Wandale's, but like, from a just tape standpoint, like a guy like he's Wandale size right now. Like, you put them next to each other, they're about the same size. Like, he's a physical guy who's produced. And then I thought this was telling, and Vince was like, well, we were never hesitant on him. And then he goes and tells a story about how Quisenberry goes up and he kicks St. Edward's ass. And I think Quisenberry was committed like 2 weeks later. You know, like, that going up and beating St. Edward's, a perennial national top 25 team, one of the best programs in the largest divisions in the state of Ohio. Like, that was a shocking result. And he went up there. I think he threw for a touchdown. I think he ran for 2. I think he caught 1. And then he picked off like 3 passes or something. Those are a little bit off, but he was incredible against the best of the best. And I think that's why he was a no doubt take. I'm personally just frustrated we don't get to see him going up against Martellus Carter this weekend, because he put the team on his back and he fumbled at the 1 yard line in the rain against Covcath to win their 4th straight state title. So I don't know. Like, I'm not willing to put my to invest all in on these slot guys, but like, Quisenberry has done everything you could have possibly asked for him at the highest possible level in the state of Kentucky. So like, I've got to believe that this guy is worth being excited about, despite the difficult circumstances this Kentucky football program is currently in.
Okay, a few things here. Back to the 2023 discussion. I'm a firm believer that where your third-year guys are in your cycle, like the third year in the program guys, that determines how healthy your roster is, to me. That is the big determination. Third year, draftable year, guys should be stepping. Your stars should be entrenched, like looking like, oh, these are all SEC guys, and then your redshirt sophomores should be stepping into starting roles or quality backups. Like that tells you what kind of roster health you're in. To me, that's why I think we all thought they had a good roster this year, because those third-year guys had been starting for a while, and you look like you had a lot of good ones, right? And it's potentially some stars. And so entering next year, that's why they are in the position they are in, because you don't have really anything.
Yeah, right.
I mean, like, let's just go down this list. Like, you don't even have your Ty Bryant is the only starter on here, Nick. When you go down, Jamarian Wilcox is not really a starter yet. Anthony Brown-Stevens is not really a starter. Grant Godfrey's not a starter. Malachi Wood started this year, but I don't think he's going to start next year. And so that's concerning. And so it's kind of put them in the position they are in right now. Like, part of the reason they need a roster overhaul is because of that 2023 class. There's just not a lot there. And so now shift into this class. One of the more fascinating aspects of this class is just how heavy it is wide receiver wise. Now, Kentucky they were light on scholarship players at receiver this year.
Correct.
It's been kind of the same thing 2 years in a row.
Correct.
So they are loading up. I'm interested to see how they handle portal with this. I'm interested to see, is there more turnover outside of what maybe is expected to be Dane Key, Barian Brown, and then Jabari Macklin. We'll see. I know there's some stuff floating around social media right now with him. So it's interesting. To me, I almost think they're spraying the board here. They're like, all right.
One of these has got to work out.
We're going to the driving range. Instead of the medium bucket of balls, we're getting the large bucket. And we're going to hit a bunch of them and see if we can hit on some. I mentioned, we mentioned the other three, the three outside guys potentially, Bowman, DeJarian Miller, Quentin Simmons, but Cam Miller and Montavian Quisenberry are both slot receivers, but they're a little bit different, but both kind of the same. Both undersized. Both players will be the smallest player when they're on the field in college football. But both of them, you can see the playmaking juice. Does that translate to the next level? That's what we'll have to see and find out. But Quisenberry, you see it. I think with Miller, one reason I'm probably a little higher on him is just because of his speed. Like, just turn on the tape. He's running away from dudes. I mean, explosive speed. Turbo speed is what I've called it. He looks like he's pressing the turbo button when he plays football. And that is exciting what that could potentially turn into. And again, they needed a slot receiver. They need to address that position. I think they need to address it in the portal along with an X receiver. I think they need to get an X. I think they need to get a slot guy that can come in and play next year. But it's an interesting strategy because they're only spending 21 scholarships? 20
right now. If Miller gets in, they'll be 21.
20% is on the receiver position.
Yeah.
I just found that interesting. And then if you add in the O-line to that,
well,
it's like 40% of your whole class is those two is offensive line and receiver, which is the two positions that people have maybe complained. And then you add in quarterback, like that's half of your class. This is the three positions that people have kind of complained about or have felt like Kentucky's not done well at lately. They spent 50% of their scholarship capital in this high school class on those spots.
And I think part of the reason why you do it at receiver as well is because you've seen freshmen and Dane Key and Barian Brown come in and have success. That feels like one of the easier spots to have instant impact because if you're just faster than the other guy and you can catch and run routes, like it don't matter how old you are, right? Like you can figure it out. And I love I got there's a lot of differences with this quick cycle, but some of the feeling is still the same in that like you're looking at these players, then you have that moment of like, oh wow, this guy has some stuff. And when you sent the Cam Miller text last night, like, oh wow, this guy can go. And I like too that he's not just like dancing around guys. It's very much like I'm planting my foot and I'm getting north-south. Like I will run past you, or you know what? If I bounce off you, so be it. But I got to get north-south. I got to get as many yards as possible. I'm not gonna shy away here. And you know what? I'll just run by you, run right past you too. That was a signing day morning. I think I would have been right around 8 a.m. Luckett when he announced his commitment to Kentucky. longtime Wisconsin commit. Kentucky got him on campus a couple times in the spring, and you thought he might be one of their first commitments. But Phil Longo pitched the air raid offense to him when he was at Wisconsin, and Miller got sold. Phil Longo didn't work out at Wisconsin. He got the axe a couple weeks back, and so that put Miller's head on a swivel, and he ends up being your best signing day addition. I know there might be some Scrooges out there. Oh, top 500. He's no good, but why don't you play some football? He's pretty fast. He can go. He can get up and go.
Yeah, I think, he had, I would say, what were the most fun tapes to watch? To me, it was those two, Quisenberry and Cam Miller.
It's video game football. It's a lot of fun. You know what else is a lot of fun, Luckett?
Would be banking with our friends at Monticello Bank.
And then all of the money you make from the bank, you make more when you play PrizePicks. And then you make more money from PrizePicks, and then you put it in the bank. It's a great relationship we've got with both of them. So go ahead. Get on PrizePicks, your best daily fantasy sports option. You can't PrizePick with any of these players, but you can PrizePick in college basketball, college football conference championships this weekend, the NFL, the NBA Cup. There's a lot going on. So go ahead and get on PrizePicks. You choose your square. You pick more or less, whether it's receiving rushing touchdowns, passing yards, rebounds, whatever it may be. You string them together, you win, bank, take it to the bank with PrizePicks. And when you sign up today and you use promo code KSR, wager $5, you're going to get $50 in PrizePicks bucks put directly into your account. So what are you waiting for? Go ahead, sign up for PrizePicks today, download the PrizePicks app, promo code KSR, wager $5, you're going to get $50 in PrizePicks bucks in your account. Terms apply at prizepicks.com. A couple other players I wanted to talk about. You mentioned the offensive line. Let's just go right ahead and talk about the offensive line, because there's some guys that you see the big bodies with like Jameel Atkins. That's a big ass body, right? Brian August, that's a big ass body. Those guys feel more like year 3 guys. But Darren Stray out of Michigan feels like you're going to be seeing this guy sooner rather than later. Adam Luckett. He's a good looking football player who's a great athlete, son of a coach. His brother played at the factory at Eastern Michigan, and he's a good athlete. Like, this isn't a basketball player, track athlete. Like, he moves well out there in space, and it feels like he's only going to get bigger once he gets into a college strength and conditioning program.
Yeah, I want to say this. According to our pronunciation guide here, it looks like it's Stry.
Whoa.
Rhymes with fry. So
that's the Stry guy.
So
that's a surprise.
Darren Stry, I think, Nick.
Oh, there we go. We got breaking news, Luckett. Sorry.
Break it on. We can get an OL later.
Dane Key plans to enter the transfer portal, according to – oh, no, he announced it. He just straight up announced it. So, Dane Key plans to enter the portal. I think that was a good decision.
Yep, agree.
Yeah, like you don't want to say it before he did it, but it just felt like the Dane Key, Barry and Brown thing had run its course, and that's nothing against Dane. Like, I thought he had a great year, and I think it's a great decision that he's not going pro and he's going to hit the portal because he's going to make a lot of money. And I mean, like, play at Ohio State, play at Alabama, play one of these prolific passing offenses. He can make a lot of money. He doesn't have to be the number one, and he can put up really good numbers before going to the draft.
Yeah, I think Dane Key is a day 3 draft pick right now, Nick.
Mm-hmm.
No, there's been some round 4 talk. I think that is probably high end where he could be. I think you come back, you can solidify round 2 or round 3. You have a really good year, mid round 2 pick. Plus, you can make money. Go cash in. He's going to be one of the best receivers in this market. I think it makes a lot of sense, both financially and for his draft stock wise, to do that. And I think for him, go somewhere with a good quarterback. Go somewhere with a good play caller. Go somewhere with an established offensive line, and go go catch 50 balls for 800 yards, 8 touchdowns, playing in some big games, and go be a pro. So I think that makes sense for him. I think it's unfortunate that Kentucky could not take advantage, could not maximize, I think, him in not necessarily that like they didn't develop him, because I think he developed well, but couldn't maximize him in a structure of an offense.
Right, because he certainly had his moments in his career. I mean, he set the freshman touchdown receptions record. That catch he had against Florida was just incredible his freshman year. Like, he's had some big moments. He played well at times, but you're right. Like, they got him here when things seem to be going in the right direction, and then like you're trending up, and then Liam leaves, and it just really threw a wrench in everything. And so it's unfortunate the way it transpired, but like, I mean, I appreciate what he gave to the University of Kentucky.
Just think of everything that happened, right? He signs, Boo Knight's the receivers coach. Boo Knight gets like quietly fired, essentially.
Yeah.
In the season. They have to bring a QC to coach the position who had only been there for a couple, few weeks or whatever.
Yeah. Former quarterback,
So Liam Cohen leaves. Will Levis gets hurt in year 2. The fit just was not there with Rich Gangarello. 2023, Liam returns, but things didn't go well, I don't think, with Scott Woodward in that position room. That's been documented. Dane has drops come up big. He doesn't have the great year in sophomore. I think he actually really responded well and had a nice bounce back season. But quarterback position, Kentucky played 3 quarterbacks. The offensive line was a major issue.
Right.
And then, he just didn't have the year that he probably wanted to have. And so now he moves on. He's going to go find a place, I think, with a proven play caller and a good quarterback. And we'll see if he dabbles in the NFL stuff at all. But I would suspect that he's just going to go play his final year of college football somewhere else.
Yeah. It was fun. I particularly enjoyed just the recruiting process with him, because it was a little weird having, basically Ryan Lemon's nephew getting all this major attention, having Vince FaceTime Dane from his official visit, like while he was on it, as Kentucky was celebrating in the South Carolina locker room, and he's over in the other one. That was hilarious. Better days. It's certainly not a good barometer for where your program is, but like, look at the offensive issues have been the offensive issues forever. And, one Dane Key can't fix them all. Like, he can play well, but he can't fix them all. So wish him the best. It's one of the many portal announcement additions that have happened. I mean, we just alluded to the 2023 one so far. We also had Keyshawn Silver announced he's in the portal. 2-year starter at defensive tackle. I can't blame him for making that decision either. I wish Kentucky would have been able to keep him, because that is a hard position to find in the portal. And even if they get Josiah Hayes back, like, I don't know what's behind him at nose guard, but I knew with Silver, he was going to eat gaps, and he was going to be a fine, steady SEC starter, and he's going to be compensated well for it. So that was a big loss in the middle of the defense, even if it didn't necessarily show up in the stat sheet.
Yeah, and I think Keyshawn Silver and Dane Key would be considered tier 1 free agents if you were Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
So that they're out of there frees up some money to go spend on other free agents. So we'll have to see how they replace these players. Like, one of the big, I think, for us when covering this and discussing this and how they're building a roster is, how do they replace the production loss? So how do you replace a Keyshawn Silver? How do you replace a Dane Key? How do you replace, the guys you lose for the draft, which would be probably Deion Walker, Maxwell Hairston, De'Aaron Jackson, Pop Dumas Johnson? How do you replace the guys you have lost? And we'll have to see. I mean, they've got a lot of boxes to check here, and it gets us to, I think, next point we should get to is just the statement at the end from Mark Stoops.
Oh, let's discuss that statement from Mark Stoops. I don't have it pulled it up. Peaks on his way back from Clemson, but it's on all of our social medias. I think it'll be on KSR next quickly. But I thought it was like that press conference. It felt like it happened quickly, and we knew that we weren't going to get him probably again, even though he's going to be talking on his coach's show. It's like, let's get in all of our questions we can now, but we also need to ask about the signing class. Things were happening really fast, and all of a sudden it just kind of abruptly ended. He was like, oh, okay. Well, let me just say, nobody panic. We're going to have a better football team, all right? It's like, oh.
With a smile on his face. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like, okay. Should I have been panicking? Because I think some people probably already were panicking. I wasn't panicking yet. Maybe some more people are panicking now. I think Stoops, I don't know if he's trying to convey an air of confidence there. I'm not really sure what he was trying to convey there.
Yeah, I think what I was talking to you about on the way up here, I think this press conference was really important from a messaging standpoint. And he, I think, repeated the same messaging he had after the Louisville game. The Kentucky football logo, we've seen, or the slogan, we've seen it be, why not Kentucky? What were some of the Joker slogans I'm trying to think of?
Ooh, Rise. Rise was the Joker one. That one was funny.
Bring it one. Kentucky on their poster, it should be don't panic this year. Don't panic should be the team slogan, because that's what I think his overall messaging to the fan base is right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if he says it tonight. Can we get DraftKings and FanDuel on the line? Can I bet Mark Stoops will say don't panic on his coach's show tonight? Because I think that's his messaging to the fan base. To me, it's his acknowledgement of the noise. It's like, hey guys, I hear you. I'm over here working. Do not panic. We got this. Now, whether people believe that or not, or have any faith in that, is another question or another conversation, another long dialogue we could have. But that's just, I think, his acknowledgement that, hey, I'm here. I'm doing this job. We're getting after it. So don't panic. And so we'll see what it looks like. And to me, like, we'll have a better answer for that, I think. Some people won't. Some people are just totally out. But we'll have a better answer for where they are roster-wise, to me, I think, in
a month,
mid-January, like when wild card weekend. So that's around Martin Luther King Day.
Gosh, that sounds a long way away.
Wild card weekend, I think we'll know a lot more, and we'll have about 90% of their roster locked in stone, and their coaching staff should be. We'll see if there's
let's hope. Let's hope, because you and I both have weekend getaways planned for that. I want to be in Florida and not worrying about some coach leaving or somebody entering the portal. So that would be ideal. That would be ideal. But there probably are some people that are a little jarred by the Key news, just because, hey, he's one of your best players and he's leaving. Like, what the hell, right? But I don't think anyone can really be surprised with how things have gone. Like, I don't think you can. It sucks. But as Vince said today, like, let's be honest, our season didn't go the way we wanted to. Like, this kind of stuff happens, right? You lose your long-time commits. Like, that's just that stuff that hasn't happened before happens when you lose like you haven't lost before. It's how the sport works.
And I think that was more directed. I think that was all kind of directed messaging from them. Vince brought that up 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're getting that out there to me. And so that's just where they are. And again, you're just going to, like we said, this is going to be a massive roster overhaul, two-way movement here.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of pressure on them. Like, they need, Nick, to my opinion, they need like at least 5 starters on both sides of the football. They need a 3 offense center and 2 tackles, bare minimum.
Running back.
They need quarterback, running back. 2 receivers, I would say 6 to 7 on offense. Defensively, edge. I think you need at least 1 off-ball linebacker, maybe 2. I think you need a nickel. That's 4. Maybe even, I think you could argue, maybe do they want to, where are they at safety? Where are they at cornerback? Maybe a starting caliber defensive lineman. So I don't think all of those would be checks, but I think one of them would at least. So you need 10, 11 starters. And that's before you even get into supplementing your roster for the quality, getting backups, because that's going to be needed too. So there's just a lot that needs to be done. Again, to come back to a topic we've talked about, it feels like 100 times. They have such a needle to thread here. It's just worrisome to me, because it's like, man, they got to hit on a lot here. Like, do I trust them to go 5 under on the SPAC 9?
I would not be. I'd be shaking them all over the place.
The wind's blowing a little bit. Maybe they're driving the ball well, but I don't know how the iron shots are looking. And then if they get it on the green, can they make the putts? When they get the visits locked in, can they close? And can they get to negotiation table and make it happen? Can they do that over and over and over? Because they got to do it for a lot of players. And so just seeing how all that plays out. And then I also thought it was interesting. Mark Stoops talked today about building with the core, building from the core.
Your core, your hardcore, your parkour, all of your core.
When you need that many starters, to me, who is the core?
Great question.
I mean, you're talking, I think, Willie Rodriguez, I think, is definitely part of the core. Who else is in the core?
I thought, I get maybe Josiah Hayes is one of those interior defensive linemen that's in the core.
Josiah
Hayes,
Hardly
Gilmore in the core.
Gilmore's the core.
Yeah,
the core.
Did you ever watch that movie? By the way, The Core.
That was one of those. That was one of those Netflix you turn on at 10 p.m. and might fall asleep while you're watching it. Right.
FX Sunday while you're napping, like half asleep, sleep half awake.
Tuesday night in June.
But
I've seen part of that.
That should have been a better movie. It's a great idea, but it just a lot of bad special effects. I think Aaron Eckhart though. I like Aaron Eckhart. I don't know what about him.
So,
got a Harvey Two-Face.
That's what worries me most about all of this. It's just that, man, you've just got to thread this needle, and then you hear them talk about, well, our season hurt us closing. I think there's definitely some differences in high school recruiting and portal recruiting. I think the money at the table in playing time matters more in portal, where I think high school, you're selling more fit, and you can come here and do this. And if you come here, play well, we'll pay you this. But maybe not necessarily big bags right away, where I think that's more of a bigger deal, portal recruiting. So they are different, but just seeing how they kind of manage all this is going to make this next 6 weeks fascinating.
I did think it was funny when you asked Vince, like, so how's it going to be different hitting the portal with an offensive coordinator? I mean, they've never been able to do that. I guess they did the first go around with Liam. But that was it. That's the only time they've been able to do that, which is just remarkable.
They did with Liam, but then Liam was gone. But the portal was different then heading into the 2022 year.
It was really like the second cycle of it.
It just wasn't very big. Like Louisville had a huge portal class that year, Nick, with Satterfield, and they signed like 17 guys. And we looked at that like, oh my God, what are they doing? Signing that many players from the portal. They're gonna
like 40.
They're gonna sink their culture. What are they doing? And it's totally different now. So it's like, to me, it's hard to even compare that. I really compare it to when Rich left and then Liam came in. Cohen didn't get there until late when they had already made a lot of decisions. If he was there and had boots on the ground, maybe some of those decisions were different. And then last year, I think Cohen made some decisions, and then Bush comes in. I think it's fair to wonder how good of a fit Bush was with Brock Vandegrift. And I also wonder Bush really wasn't here when they, and then I'm trying to think when Wolford got over here, but I don't think Wolford was here when they got Mincy. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And Bush Hamden wasn't here when they added Chip Traynham, when they added Jamori Macklin, when they've added some players. So he's at least going to be here. And I think the big thing is the arrow's going to be pointing in the right direction. They're on the same page from the jump, where it's not necessarily the staff going out and getting players, but you don't know specifically what the offensive coordinator is going to value and really want. So at least I think they're on the same page, and let's see, does that make a difference? Because that's really something they haven't had. And I think that's something that will help.
I did want to mention a few more positions, potential portal movements before we move on and just kind of put a bow on things to actually talk about the signing day kids, because I don't want to do a signing day show and kind of just gloss over a lot of them, because it does feel unfair to them that it's the high school kids have seemingly been hijacked by the by the transfer portal. I'm completely with you on your big picture point on threading the needle. I'm also financially, I think they're in a fine spot, but it's just how big do you want to go at certain spots, right? Because the Stanford quarterback Ashton Daniels feels like a guy that Bush Hamden wouldn't want to have. He's rushed for 1,200 career yards, 15 touchdowns, and 3,400 passing yards. That feels like a guy that Bush Hamden would like to have. But how much is he going to command, and can you be willing to get there if you also need to go get an edge? And then also, how much are you willing to spend on an edge? Because there's some guys out there that are going to have a high going rate, right? So how many, where do you spend your tier one money on, right? That's my big question, though, because we know the needs. I mean, Vince even said, they're getting Michael Skinner. They like Michael Skinner, but they're going to need to get another tight end. Just they're going to need another body in there. That's on a tier one guy. But do you get a tier one guy on the defensive line? Do you get it at the edge? Do you just do all of it at tackle? I think that's the question we don't really know now. But you know what? It also doesn't even open until Monday. So, maybe then is when we'll get a better idea of how big they're going to swing at certain spots. Because I think it is clear we know the spots, but when you need so many starters, which ones are you going to try to make your best starters? And which ones should you make your best starters? It's a fair question.
I think they have to go after a mid-tier guy, target him early, and wrap him up.
A quarterback?
Yeah. I think similar to what Louisville did, Tyler Shuck.
Yeah.
Minnesota got Max Brosmer from FCS. He had a good year for them. I think you're kind of swimming in those waters.
Okay.
You got to evaluate one, take them, go. And maybe it's one that could looked at, maybe a little bit of damaged goods, whether it was injury or had a good year and a bad year, but you got to evaluate one, pick him, go, and just let it ride. I think that's what you have to do because you have so many other needs you have to fill.
So what are your tier one money needs though? Is it tackle and edge?
Again, I think they're going. Are you asking
I'm giving
what
Adam
I would do?
I'm giving Adam Luckett the GM hat.
Are you asking what I would do or what they're going to do?
Both.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to spend a lot of money on the line. And then I think they're going to go pay top dollar for a tailback.
Oh, I definitely.
I think you're going to see whoever the top tailback is. Well, we'll find out here over the next week, I would say. I think when our guy Pete Nakos writes blah, 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 targeted ABC, I think Kentucky will be in the mix of that. I think that's where you will see them. I think you'll see them dabble kind of mid-tier receivers, two of those. And then defensively, I think edge And I think they'll probably take one big swing at some defensive line
Okay.
that they think is good.
There
That
you
is
have
kind
it.
of my 2 cents. And then I think they'll parse the corner and safety market and see if they can find some value there. That's kind of my idea. A part of the hard part of all of this is, Nick, we don't specifically know how much money they have. We think they have a lot, but we don't know how much.
Well,
but that's going to get sucked up quick because I think they're going to spend a lot on the offensive line.
yeah.
Do they overpay? Like, just how's
What's
the
your rate of
ROI?
return?
Right. What's the ROI going to be on that? That's something we'll have to wait and see. But that's where I think the strategy is.
We'll see it all unfold in the coming weeks and days. I do want to get more into the high school kids, some that could play right away, but then some of your slow cookers with some big time potential. But I've got to talk to you first about game time. It's hard to shop for people, especially when you're in your 30s, like you and I. But you got a big time comedian coming to town, maybe a Gillis or a Nate Bargatze or one of those, maybe a big time concert. Game time, they've got your best tickets for all your concerts, all of your games. Also, your comedy shows. And the best part about Game Time is how convenient it is, especially when you download the Game Time app and you hit the GT Picks button. It'll get you the best ticket at the best price where you can just weed through all the nonsense and go straight to the best deals out there. And the best part about giving somebody the gift of tickets for Christmas too, like it, is you get to enjoy it too. It's like your own personal Christmas gift to yourself. So don't waste any time. Download the Game Time app today. Put in promo code KSR, and you're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Game Time app. Download it right now. Promo code KSR, and you're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Game Time, the best, fastest way to get tickets delivered right to your phone. It's at Game Time. Luckett, I mentioned Michael Skinner. I like the juice he's got there. He was a tight end, basically playing wildcat quarterback and running back for his team there. He's got some explosiveness. We've mentioned some guys in the past is like, ooh, they could do some wide receiver stuff. Like, he is the most Jacob Tamey looking guy that they've had, where it's like, okay, yeah, you could play him in the slot and he could do some stuff because he has so much wiggle in the open field.
Positional versatility is the big thing, I think, with Mikel Skinner. Really big riser in the recruiting rankings. It's going to take some, I think, creativity to really maximize his skill set, but he can be
which is not a strong suit for this offense, but yes.
You can see him in a good college offense really being a mismatch because of he can play some X. I think he can play in the slot. You can move him around as an off-ball tight end. Really good at yards after catch. I thought he showed some feistiness as a blocker on tape. A really good player. It's just how do they use him? I think looking down the road, you put him and Willie Rodriguez on the field together, I think you could do some creative things.
It's a good combo, yeah.
But you've got to get there. And again, tight end usage, we talked about it. I think people are a little too critical of it. You go back to last year, they threw the ball to the tight end a lot. They just didn't have one guy getting all the targets.
Mm-hmm.
But that's going to be a focus point, and it's something they haven't really specialized in ever in the Stoops era. So how do they kind of use that? One point I would make is Bush Hamden, when he was at Washington, tight end was a wide receiver 1 year. So maybe that could, if this plays out for multiple years, maybe Mikel Skinner could become that. But you could see the skill set with him. He's a very good prospect, and we'll see if he can. He feels like a guy that probably needs to add some weight. I don't know if he's really going to find a role in year one, but he's a football player. He can make some plays, and he's got a lot of versatility.
One guy who I know is going to be playing in year one is Martellus Carter. He's playing in the Class 4A state championship game on Friday. And Stoops said he's got the instincts, and that's just what I see in him, man. It's hard to find it, but he's got the instincts and the athleticism to anticipate what's going to happen before it happens. A two-way star for the Blue Tornado. I fully expect him to be playing next year. He's enrolling early. It'd be nice if you didn't have to, you got another nickel, but Carter was able to play some of that in year one. And hell, even if it's just in the Vito Tisdale blitz packages, like I'm cool with it. Like just let's get this guy on the field and let's see him do some work.
Yeah, you got the Mike Edwards comp from Vince Marrow. To me, I didn't really see him as that when I watched the tape. I saw him as kind of a traditional free safety, a post safety who could cover hash to hash and then come down and fill the alley and close. Got a lot of speed, good instincts back there. I think that's a position Kentucky struggled.
Yep.
Here the last couple of years.
Yep.
Is there a situation where if they struggle again, is it like the Ty Bryant situation where, hey, let's throw him in here, see what he can do? So him and like Cam Dooley, I kind of look at, all right, that's kind of you've got Lovett and Ty Bryant returning,
right,
but that's kind of your future. Those are both good, strong recruiting wins. Like, what can you do with them moving forward? That's how I view Carter. Now, I'll be interested to see how they kind of use him because Nickel is a big spot next year. Does he kind of play there? We'll see, but that's kind of where I saw him. It's kind of more of a traditional safety in the back end.
One other player who could end up being in a role in the secondary is Andrew Purcell, who, Kentucky, you normally see them be like, let's get some trades guys, like the Grant Graydon kid they flipped from Minnesota today, who's just like, he's a big corner. Let's see if he can clog some zones for us. Purcell is like Nichols in that they buck that trend, but they have great ball skills, good length, and are really fast. I thought it was funny. So behind the scenes, like I write all the bios for the Signing Day Live blog, and he writes the scouting stuff. And we both wrote if he was 2 inches taller, he'd be I think I put he'd be at Alabama, and I think you put he'd be a top 100 player. Like, and it really is the case. Like if he's a little bit taller, he's one of the most sought after DBs in the country, and he still was a highly recruited cornerback. So I could see him having a similar role that Nichols had this year, where it's like, no, you don't want some true freshman starting in the SEC, but guys are going to get hurt, and you know what? You're going to need to use them in a pinch, and then eventually a worker's way in the rotation. I thought Nichols played really well as a true freshman. He had some moments, both good and bad, but got some really good experience, and I see a similar future for Mr. Purcell's.
Yeah, if he's 6'1", he's playing for Kirby Smart.
Yeah.
So I like him a lot. I think he's probably got some inside-outside versatility. I thought the same with Teron Nichols, inside-outside versatility. They stuck him outside. I think you could probably see something similar. Reason why I think he might play nickel a little more is because Kentucky just values length a lot. I just don't know if he has the length. But you see it. He can run. He can cover. Great ball skills. Just a really good athlete. Yeah. Plays with a tenacity. Not afraid to stick his face in the fan. Just a good player. He's a good football player. You can make the case he might be the best prospect in this class. You get him and Carter together in secondary. I think that's a pretty good haul. And then I kind of like the blend of skill set Dylan Williams brings to the table.
Yeah. He's not afraid of contact.
Yeah. And so
he's not afraid of contact at all.
Secondary, I think there's a lot to like in this class.
We were interrupted in our Darren Stry conversation, but I've said it before, I'll say it again. Like I watch him and I'm like, oh, that's Landon Young, but in better shape. Like Landon was bigger, but had to like kind of trim down and get more strength to that. Whereas Stry is put together pretty well and just needs to add to that. Like he's ball player, absolute ball player there. Forgot to unmute Mr. Luckett.
Sorry, just trying to at the restaurant. Just don't want to have all the background noise, just a little bit. But yeah, Stry for me, Nick, 6'6", basketball player in high school. I believe he throws shot on the track team. Brother was a college football player. To me, he's big, long, has a true tackle frame, but you watch his tape. He's a knee bender, sinks his hips on contact. Potential road grader in the run game. When you put that size, flexibility, and power all together, I would be surprised if he's not a good player here. We'll have to see how it shakes out, but I would be surprised if he's not a good player here. I think he could play left or right. We'll see how it shakes out. To me, Brian Auguste, Nick, was a guy I liked a lot. Tape. I just worry about what the measurables are.
Yeah.
That's one thing I wrote in the scouting report. Does a lot of good things, but the measurables are key here because that's going to determine a lot to me. They list him at 6'4", 295. Is he closer to 6'5" or is he closer to 6'3"?
Yeah.
How long are the arms?
Yeah.
How long are the arms?
Same thing with Jaden Clark.
That's the big question for me, but you watch him on tape, he moves well and he shows some power. Augusty does. So I like that there. Where Jaden Clark, I worry less about that because he's an inside player. He's gonna play center, he's gonna play guard. To me, he didn't play as a junior, but his senior tape, I thought he showed movement skills, and I thought he showed power. I liked what I saw from him. Now, I think you looked at him kind of when he was younger, he just looked skinny. Like, how big can he get? Is a real question for me with him. And I think that wraps up the O-line. And then Atkins he's
enormous.
A project.
He's
a project.
But he's big. Got to be able to get those feet right and get the technique down. But he's big. We got to move quick.
Let's check in on him in 2 years. But yeah,
we got to get rolling. But I did want to mention, I thought it was kind of funny. They were like, we like Brennan Ward because he was good on a terrible team. He basically put the team on his back as a quarterback, a little bit of dual threat action, where Stone Saunders is putting up record numbers in Pennsylvania. First quarterback to have 4 3,000-yard passing seasons there. He's 131 yards away from the state's all-time passing record. He's already got the passing touchdowns record. He plays for just a powerhouse program. So you almost have like two polar opposites in that regard, more of a pocket passer, a guy who does a little bit versus an RPO guy. So I'm fascinated that they've just got kind of, I guess, the best of both worlds. They're gonna see what sticks. They're gonna see what sticks.
Yeah, I think absolutely. And then Cedric Works is another one, Nick, we haven't talked about. He was a top 150 recruit when he committed. He's now sub 300. Did not have a great senior season, I don't think, but even on his junior tape, I thought was really raw. Like, he's got the physical traits, he's got the athleticism. He can really run. He can run the hoop. You see some of his basketball athleticism from his leaping ability to be able to run and chase. And he's got everything you would want, I think, from an edge prospect, but he needs development. Like, he's a guy, I don't expect him to play next year. He needs physical refinement. He needs to get stronger. He needs to add mass. He needs to learn how to be an edge rusher. And Javian Campbell is similar to me. Basketball player, obviously.
Yeah.
You see it. And he was a guy I thought would play with a great effort on tape, but he just needs a lot of refinement. He's the guy, maybe not too different from Brian Robinson, where he's just going to need some time. But he got all the tools.
Well, let's hope these portal players can give them some time to develop. We're out of time today, but we do appreciate you all joining us on what has been a chaotic signing day show. We did not anticipate Dane Key breaking news here, but you never know what's going to happen. As you said, we've called it silly season. It's also head on a swivel season. Lots happening. Make sure you're a part of all the madness over on KSR Plus, KS Board. Going to wrap up the show by saying, doesn't look like DJ Miller is going to be in because they released their big board.
I was just about to text you that, but yeah.
It doesn't look like he's going to be there. So we'll see. We'll see if they can get that done in the next day, or if Ole Miss will come and swipe him away. So hopefully the Cats can get that deal done. We're going to get out of here. Whew, it's been crazy, but it's been a lot of fun. This has been 11 Personnel presented by Monticello Bank.